Okay guys, so today's Tuesday. Actually, you are at home and it's a teacher work day, and I wanted to jump on here real quick and do a video for you for tomorrow when we start in the standard form, because some of you will be taking longer doing the tests and others will be ready to move on. Therefore, you'll be able to look at the video and do some self-study to be able to do the assignment. Hopefully, that's the plan. Or just have something to look back on. So, you know, when we're dealing with linear functions, there's actually three forms, but we only work with two of them. So there are two forms that we're going to talk about. And we've already done one of the forms. We have done y equals mx plus b. That is your slope-intercept form. They call that slope-intercept form. And then the other form, which we're going to start on, is called standard form. And standard form is good for certain things. But there's one main thing about standard form that you got to keep in mind. I'm going to put it in red. Okay, with standard form, no fractions. So if I tell you to give me standard form of something and when you're done, you've got fractions, it's wrong. You can't have any fractions in standard form. So all you do is go through and clear them like we've done so many times. So what might this look like? We might have a slope-intercept of y equals 2x minus 3, and I want you to put that into standard form. So in order to put it in standard form is ax plus by equals c. Notice the equal sign. Notice to the left of the equal sign are your x's and your y's. Notice here to the left of the equal sign is only my y. So what here needs to be moved over for it to look like this? If you said the 2x, you're right. X's have to go over. So I'm going to subtract 2x, and that gives me a negative 2x. X's come first, plus y comes second, equals negative 3. And that's standard form. The great thing about standard form is you can graph functions using your x and y intercepts with standard form on most of them. Not all of them, but on most of them. So like this equation I just did would not be good for that, but we'll get into that later. Let's look at another problem. What if I had y equals negative 1/2 x minus 2? And I want to put this in standard form. Again, standard form, ax plus by equals c. To the left of my equal sign, I have the x's and the y's. But to the left of this equal sign, I only have y. So what do I need to move over? You got it. I need to move that negative 1/2 x over. X has to be over here. So I'll add 1/2 x. And that gives me a 1/2 x plus y equals negative 2. Well, remember going back up, no fractions. So I have to go back, and before I'm done, I have to clear the fractions. I clear the fractions by multiplying everything by the common denominator. Those cancel out, giving me x plus 2y equals negative 4. And that is standard form. So that is how you're going to move things over into standard form. You want your x's and your y's to be on the left side of the equal sign. X's and y's on the left side, your number that doesn't have the variable on the right. Now, this problem would be easy for me to graph. That's a good one. So let me just throw a graph up here. Now, in order to graph using standard form, I'm going to graph by intercepts. Your x-intercept is where your line is crossing the x-axis, and your y-intercept is where it's crossing the y-axis. So if I go to my equation up here, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cover up the x, pretend it is not there, and I'm going to solve for y. So 2y equals -4. Solve for y, divide both sides by 2, and y will equal -2. So what I've got here is 2y equals -4, and I'm dividing by 2, so y equals -2. So on my y-axis, I'm going to put a dot on where -2 might be. Likewise, I'm going to cover up the y's. Before I covered up the x, now I'm going to cover up the y. And what does x equal? Well, here x equals -4. So I go to my x-axis, find where -4 might be, and put a dot. And then I could draw my line. And that's how you graph using standard form. The reason why we do that is, the reason why we cover it up, when you have an x-intercept, what's the value of y? When you have an x-intercept, the value of y is 0. So if y is 0, and 2 times 0 just means 0, that's gone. That's why I said cover that up. And then x equals -4. Well, when you're crossing the y-axis, the same thing goes. Your x equals 0. So if x is 0, it's not there, and that's why I told you to cover that one up and solve for y. And you divide both sides by 2, and y gives you -2, which is why we put our dot there. So that is how you graph using standard form. And that's how you change, manipulate an equation and put it in standard form. Let's try another one. Let's do x minus 5 equals 2/3 y. Well, that one's all jacked up, okay? Because standard form is ax plus by equals c. On the left-hand side, I must have my x's and my y's. But here, I got my y on the right-hand side. So on this one, I need to move my -5 over there, and I need to move my 2/3 y over there. So to move -5, I'm going to add 5. Now I have x equals, that's gone, 2/3 y plus 5. But now I got to move the 2/3 over there because I need my x's and my y's on the left. Take away 2/3 y. And -2/3, oops, nope, don't want my y's first, want my x's first. So I have x minus 2/3 y equals 5. I'm getting there. I've got my x's and my y's on the left side of the equal sign. So now I have to get rid of the fraction because we're not allowed to have fractions. And I'm going to do that by multiplying everything by 3. So that would give me 3x minus 2y equals 15. This would not be a good one to graph because when I cover this up and solve for y, I'm going to get a decimal. Though I can graph a decimal, and if I had to, I would, but I would get a decimal of 7.5, so you'd have to put it between 7 and 8, which is fine, you can do that, 7.5. But on this one, if I covered that up and solved for x, x would equal 5, because 15 divided by 3 is 5. So I could do that. If I wanted to cover this up, then what I would have would be -2y equals 15, divide by -2, y equals -7.5. And now when I cover this up, I have 3x equals 15, and you divide by 3, and x equals 5. So there's my x and there's my y. On the coordinate plane, if you go to y to -7.5, so negative between 7 and 8, I'm going to call it right there. And on x, we're at 5. X is 5. And then you can draw your line. And that's the good thing about standard form. You can graph a line using your x and y intercepts. Just keep in mind, when you're graphing your y-intercept, x equals 0, And when you're graphing your x-intercept, y equals 0. Also keep in mind that when you're dealing with standard form, you are not allowed to have fractions. No fractions, which means, by the way, no decimals. Some kids will put decimals in. Well, you said no fractions. Fractions and decimals are the exact same thing. No fractions, no decimals. You need to clear them out. Clearing them out is not hard. We know that clearing, we just multiply by the common denominator, and that will get rid of any fractions. And then if I have you graph, which you are going to be graphing with x and y intercepts, well, all you got to do, if you know that when you're graphing a y-intercept, x is 0, x-intercept y is 0, if you know that concept, then all you have to do, as long as you know that concept, cover x up, solve for y. Y equals 2. Cover up y and solve for x. X equals 3. On your coordinate plane, y equals 2, x equals 3, and there's your line. Hopefully that teaches you at least some basics about standard form. Again, keep in mind that forms are formats. So when we're dealing with linear functions, the formats that we use are slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, and we know how to graph this. We've already done it. We will do more. And then standard form, which is ax plus by equals c, and fractions are not allowed. So that's quick and skinny and easy of it. Hopefully you guys will do okay. I'm going to give you some work to do, so if the others are still testing and you've watched this video, you should be ready to do the work on your own. If you need help, raise your hand and I will be glad to help you. Bye.